Hey, how are my Photoshop people? I would like to take a minute and talk to you about a new selection tool that is inside of Photoshop 2020. And then also the actions feature that's built into Photoshop that has always been there. So let's take a look at our selection tools. You have heard me in class and previously in lessons talk about the quick selection tool. I think I called it my go-to tool. And I have an example here of a rose on, a white background. If I grab the quick selection tool, you can see I can paint a selection. I'm just clicking. It's doing a good job, but it's taking me with this particular example a lot of little strokes here as I start to move around this composition. And so it's taking me a little, and you can see it kind of goofed up. When I clicked here, it kind of grabbed all that. I'm going to get rid of that by going select, deselect, and I'm going to take a look at my other tool that we've talked about, the Magic Wand tool. That tool is really super good at solid chunks of color. So if I click on the white background, it did a fairly good job. It kind of like right in here, goofed up a bit and in here. So that would be just a matter of me holding down the modifier keys, like the Option key to take out an area. Oop, and see, you can see how it already is not maybe the best tool. There's a new tool, and I want to talk about it. It came with 2020. This is not covered in the textbook because that's 2019. So if I hit the object selection tool, this is a really amazing tool. It kind of is it's gonna remind you of like the crop tool. So basically I'm saying, hey computer, I want you to look at this area right here. And I let go. When I let go of the mouse, it did a really good job of making a selection based on the color information. It's a very sophisticated feature. There's a few areas that I really want to go in and say, hey, look at this. So if I use the modifier keys, shift adding to a selection, option taking away from a selection, I'm going to hold down option. I'm going to say, hey computer, look right here. There's an area where it grabbed some of the background. I can tell it to locally look right in this area, and it does a really good job of making a selection. I can see there's another area right here. Holding down option, I'm going to click, hold, and drag and say, hey computer, look at that. I also see where it got a little too thin right here. Maybe I want to grab that and tell it to look at that selection as well. So you can see this is a fairly sophisticated option that is in Photoshop. I very much like this tool. It has eliminated a little bit of extra work for us. It can be worked in tandem with the other tools. I mean, once you've set a selection, you're pretty good. And then, as I've said in class, whenever I make a selection, I move up here to this, what we'll call refinement. It's select and mask. This is where we go to take a look at, what's really going on with the selection. I can have different views. I can look at it with an onion skin background, marching ants, which is usually what I do. A Rubylith overlay. It's just showing you basically a mask in kind of a rose color as to what is going to be cut out. I can look at this against black. I can really see some edges and a little bit of contamination right in here. I can see it against white, a black and white mask, or just on the layer. I'm going to go back to marching ants, and once I have decided how I want to look at this, I could go here and I could say, okay, let's smooth this out a little bit. I think a little bit of smoothing is good. Maybe I want to do a slight shift out to include a few more pixels, maybe 5%, not much. I want it to decontaminate colors right in here. I want that information straightened out. And if I still have little problems that I want to adjust, I can move over here to the refinement brush and actually click. That was something that needed a little attention, and right in here I think it needed to grab just a little bit too, and I can include that. So that, let's add, there we go. Okay. So I can go in here and work on the selection and get it to do exactly what I need to. I'm going to have to go in here with the lasso tool and include this area in our selection. It was kind of fighting me, which is very normal with selections. I mean, this is good, but it's not perfect. And so once I have the selection, worked up here, and if I need to take a look again, maybe looking against a dark background, it's looking a little bit better. I can see that it does look much better. I could, if I needed to feather this and need a soft edge, I don't really want that. But a really cool feature that's built into this is I can actually invert my selection at this point. I don't have to go back into Photoshop and go select inverse. I can inverse right here. So I can invert the selection. So now it's picked everything but the rose. Okay, so the pink rose is there, but I have selected the white background. So before I invert this though, I just remembered that this rose is a locked layer. I'm gonna temporarily click OK here. I can go back in and hit revert, or I can go select invert, but for right now I'm just gonna click OK, which throws me back into Photoshop. When I look up here, I have to actually take this, and if you see a lock here, you need to unlock it. In fact, probably that would have been a good thing to do right in the beginning of this lesson. But these are snags that you normally just catch, so I need to unlock that. You unlock a background that is locked, or a layer that is locked, by double clicking on it and making it a layer. You can just leave it, in this case, layer 0, but I'm going to leave it alone. So right now that I have unlocked this layer, that was real important to do. If you ever see a little lock mark, that means the layer's locked. You can't do a whole lot with it. You need to make it into a layer by double clicking on it. Okay, so I'm right here. I have a couple options. I could move back in to select inverse and hit invert and click OK. Let's do that. All right, I'm gonna edit undo so I can show you the other way to do that. The other way would be to go on and click OK, go back into Photoshop and go select inverse. And now I have everything but the rose selected. So I have some options now. I am looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, what can I do with this selection? Okay, so now that we have the selection made, let's talk about a couple options of things that you can do with this now. I have the white background selected. So I could just go edit, and I could go fill, and I could tell it to fill with a black background. I'm going to undo that. I could go back up to edit and go to fill, and I could tell it to fill with a gray background, a white background, a pattern, a foreground, and a background color, which are right here, which are black and white at this time, or another color if I need it to go grab another color. So that is one option. I could also actually just hit delete. And if I hit delete, you'll see that it got rid of all the colors, and now I have this rose on a transparent background. And so maybe that's what I want to do, particularly if I was taking this into a website that already had a background and I did not want to take a background with it. So those are some really interesting options that are fun to work with in Photoshop.